Hi, I am Padma Mallikarjunan. I am an Enterprise Support Manager at AWS, and I am based out of Austin, Texas. Welcome to AWS Knowledge Center Live, where we share best practices and troubleshooting tips from AWS Support. Joining me today from our AWS Dublin office is Francisco Penta, Marco Samela, and Carlos Martinez. Can you give us a quick introduction? Let's start with you, Francisco.
Hi, everyone. My name is Francesco Penta. I'm a Principal Cloud Support Engineer here with AWS Premium Support in Dublin. And I've been with Amazon and Premium Support for a little less than 8 years now.
Hi, my name is Carlos. I am also part of Premium Support. I've been here for almost 6 years now, and based in Dublin as well.
Hey, Marco.
You're
on mute.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Marco. I am a Senior Cloud Support Engineer here in Dublin, and I have been with AWS for about 2 years now.
Thank you for the introductions, everyone. So, everyone, today we will be introducing to you AWS Systems Manager, also known as SSM. We will specifically focus on the SSM Fleet Manager, which will help you streamline your remote server management. Before we get into the details, a quick note to our attendees online. Please use the chat window on the right-hand side of your screen to share your thoughts and ask your questions throughout the episode. We look forward to hearing from you. Francisco, can you talk us through what we are going to be talking about today?
Absolutely, and thank you, Padma. So today we're going to talk a bit about AWS System Managers, give a brief introduction on what our customers are using it for, what it does, and what you can leverage it for, and talk a bit about those use cases that can help our customers and troubleshoot and resolve issues faster. We'll then focus on AWS System Manager Fleet Manager, a new feature that's been released last December, and have a demo on the features and capabilities of the Fleet Manager solution. We'll then talk about managing nodes and how you can manage your nodes, so instances and on-premises servers using the AWS System Manager's agent. So with that said, let's have a quick look into AWS System Manager, what it does and why it was invented. So the idea about the system managers is that a suite of tools that help you observe and take action on your resources. As a concept of applications and logical resource grouping that allow you to group instances, auto-scaling groups, databases across the different components of your application or applications that you're running on AWS, easily allow you to visualize the data that those resources are producing, both from a compliance point of view, metrics, and other data that those resources are emitting, and quickly take action. So either to respond to insights that you're getting from those metrics or automate common tasks and actions. So EC2 System Managers was actually born a few years ago. I think it was around 2015, and it was just a feature for Windows EC2 instances to allow you to run commands onto instances using the EC2 config agent. Customers liked it a lot. We listened to their feedback, and from there we started growing it and becoming a standalone service that makes managing of resources in AWS a bit easier. Basically, it is something that if you're are all in AWS or still having an hybrid solution, or are slowly migrating to AWS, can make your life sensibly easier for your operations and your engineers when managing those resources. What we want to talk now about is about the capabilities, so what it can do. Carlos, as a subject matter expert for system managers, can you give us an overview of what are the main pillars and the main capabilities of a system manager?
Sure, Francesco. So bear with me because SSM has a lot of different capabilities. And I think that the best way to understand what SSM can do for you is we group in these 4 pillars. The first one is node management. I think that it's better to follow from top to bottom, because node management is everything has to do with how you manage your EC2 instances, your computer, your virtual machines. As Francesco was saying, SSM is not just for EC2. You can manage your on-prem services, so any servers in your own infrastructure. You can have also in virtual machines, or you can have like any other like server out of AWS. So to manage those services, you have first distributor. Distributor is just a way to create a package. So you put software there that can target different platforms. Typically, you have something like, let's say, an antivirus of a piece of software where the installation files and the requirements are different in different versions of Linux or Windows. So distributor is aware of the platform and can put there the bits that are particular to that particular platform. Then you have Patch Manager, where you can scan your fleet of instances and install patches, so they can report, look, I am missing these particular patches, and then you can in a planned way install those. Then you have a State Manager. A State Manager allows you to run commands in a scheduled fashion. So for example, you want to validate something on your instances. You want to make sure that the firewall is well configured, or you have a particular version of software installed, or a role, a service is running. Um, so you can run these commands on Linux or Windows and check periodically. So every Friday, every 2 hours, and then report back to SSM. You have run command that is kind of similar to State Manager, but it only execute once. So you want to do a particular change on that computer or group of computers. Then you have Session Manager that allows you to connect to the shell of your instances, Linux shell or PowerShell in the case of Windows, to run commands. What things about Session Manager is like you can encrypt the communication, so that will replace having a Bastion host in your infrastructure. The other capability is inventory. So with SSM, you can get what do you have installed on your instances, but also if you're having on-premise environment, you can do inventory of hardware configuration and network configuration and so on. It comes with a lot of different things out of the box, but you can also create your own. For example, if you want to inventory something else, you can configure SSM to do so. Finally, you have compliance, so you can receive alerts if something is not going with the plan, like for example, I don't know, your S3 bucket is too open, or the firewall is not configured or something, then you can have an alert triggered by SSM. And on top of this list is Fleet Manager, because Fleet Manager, what is actually we're going to talk today, is like the console, is the UI where you go there and you can see all this information. Then we have Change Manager, change management. That is the second pillar. Here you have how you do what you saw in the node management, but in a more like structured way, how I plan to do this run command, this inventory, these changes, but I want to get approval. I don't want to, for example, start running patch baseline from 8 up to 3 a.m. in the morning. So if you haven't finished after 3, I will stop. So you can coordinate these different tasks. Then you have application management. That is an abstraction. So you can manage your application stack. So you can group the different components. Like, I don't know, let's say that you have a web server that are running an EC2 instance, you have an RDS database, you have an auto-scaling group, and then you can visualize the stack and report back in performance issues. So you have this entity. And then you have app config and parameter store that are like site services that allow you to centralize information. For example, parameter store, you can have centralized some text data, like, I don't know, a license key or credentials that you can reuse in your infrastructure. So you can have this central place where the information is. You secure this information with permissions, and you can just revoke permissions. I don't know, if it's a password, you can rotate password, etc. And finally, you have operation management. That is like the dashboard. Is the place where the DevOps, the administrator, will go to visualize, do I have issues with my component of the platform? It has access to the personal health dashboard, so you can see any event in AWS that could be affecting your AWS resources, and trusted advisor that is not more than giving you best practices, right? Do you have enabled MFA in your account? Do you have, I don't know, performance issues? Do you have instances that you are not utilizing? So all this information is in a single place. So that's it. It's a lot of features, but we will focus today on see more about node management.
Perfect. Thank you, Carlos. And one thing that I wanted to ask Marco, because he was sharing a story from a customer around Session Manager. Marco, can you share with the audience how customers are using Session Manager to simplify their infrastructure?
Yeah, I recently helped a customer with, they were using a large amount of Bastion host to connect to their EC2 instances. And with the help of Session Manager, that is a feature in node management that Carlos named, we had the ability of helping this customer removing all the Bastion host and directly connect to their instances in a secure way, with also permission defined by IAM, and they saved cost to removing these Bastion host instances.
Then that's fantastic, because I know that it integrates with IAM, allows you to have also additional security, bring with IAM users, so you don't have to use any of the third-party softwares or manage your own Bastion host. It's a really great feature that removes a lot of the operational complexity from managing your infrastructure, and allows you to do things quicker and easier. Thanks, Marco. Okay, perfect. Yep. So there's a couple other use cases that we want to talk about, but before we move to the next section, I want to see if there's any question from the audience. Padma, is there any question?
Thank you, Francesco. Yes, we do have a question from the audience here. Thank you for your question, Ray_DB222. So hopefully we addressed a little bit of what you asked for. And the question is, what are customers saying about Fleet Manager? I'm curious what they're saying, since it is pretty new. So let me first point you to our use cases and customer codes. We have them captured on our documentation, and I'll look at some of these over here, where you can see customers are acknowledging how the Systems Manager helps them to shorten the time to identify any existing problems across their hybrid systems. And they apply automation easily to reduce the undifferentiated heavy lifting. And also it provides them additional visibility and control. I'm going to give you the link to our use cases so you can go through additional stories about them. Back to you, Francesco. Anything else you want to add to this one?
Absolutely. So I've spoken with a few customers regarding the new feature, and as you will see during the demo and during the feature overview, Fleet Manager, it's not a new tool per se, because it basically allows you to have a single glass pane into all the capabilities of Fleet Manager. But those customers loved it, simply because they don't have to have users go around different areas to figure out what their resources are doing. You go to your resources that are registered with it, and you can have a quick look at what they are doing. It is a browser tool. It's a console-based. You don't use that with API. Simply a mean of bringing all the information together in a single place. And so far, customers have started adopting it, are really liking it. We're getting a lot of positive reception towards it. So it definitely simplifies a lot. And this has been with a bit of a mix of larger customers and smaller customers. It definitely is more useful when you're running a large number of resources, because that's where things can get a bit confusing. This tries to streamline that approach and process.
Thank you, Francesco. Over to you to cover the rest of the use cases.
Perfect. So one thing that we want to talk about is that, so as we said, SSM, System Manager, it is something that was built to make things easier for our customers. It started as to manage nodes, as we mentioned, something that you want to run commands on your instances, or you want to simply know the status of those instances. But we saw that there's been very good reception and a bigger scope for it. So we introduce automation, which is something that we'll focus on in a bit, which allows you to remove repetitive tasks. We add better observability through the integration with CloudWatch and the personal health dashboard, the trusted advisor. So all those things that normally give you information about your resources in a single place, and you can organize and orchestrate on those resources based on that information as well. But also, there is a reality of a lot of customers that are moving to AWS and still have a lot of resources in their data center, or customers that have a need for those hybrid environments. So SSM does not only focus on resources in AWS, it allows you to manage resources that are left at home, let's say so, and the same as you will have resources managed in AWS. But most importantly, and one of the things that I really like a lot is the fact that it allows you to maintain security and compliance. And it does so by using different products and features in the suite of system managers. But you have a desired state. You can have, for example, setting for your security groups to be in a certain state. Let's say that your security group for your web server that's open on port 443, you don't want to close that ever, because that will affect the traffic. But especially as your organization is growing there and the users are used to go and do manual changes, which they should, right? Everything should be done through change control. But when something happens and there is a mistake because they thought they were doing something else, but it really impacted your production environment, this is how system managers can help you maintain that state, identify what changed, what are the resources that are being touched, and allow you to quickly identify that. It's basically a way of keeping things secure, patched, and compliant to the state that you want them in. Now, another thing that I want to talk about, but again, as a subject matter expert, I'll let Carlos talk about it, is how support helps customers and how customers can help themselves through the use of automations.
Thanks, Francesco. So yes, this is a topic I've been working for quite a while, is how we enable customers to automate actions so they can self-resolve some of the most common issues, or get information that will help them to speed up the resolution. Like, for example, when you're doing some diagnosis of an issue, typically with actually as our specialty as a premium support engineers is how to collect logs, how we can identify what is the root cause of the problem. So we are using SSM because, and automation in particular, because you can first automate repetitive tasks that are error prone, because not because they are difficult, is because they are like they have a lot of different steps. And usually, for example, I'm going to give you an example so you can illustrate better how it works. You lost the password of your EC2 instance in the past, and this is of course because we are in the cloud, so you don't have a monitor and a keyboard that you can attach to your computer. So you have to detach the volume, the system volume of your instance, attach to another instance, mount some files, change those files, put the disk back. And it's not that difficult, but it takes time. And if you make that mistake because you attach the volume to the wrong instance, then the things can become a bit complicated. So with this knowledge that we get in premium support, we has been designing these documents that allow to automate this. And the good thing is, like, you just click here. You want to reset the password, just click here, and the things happens almost magically. So you have to wait. The good is that you can track, like, because it's a workflow, you can see what the automation is doing step by step, and it's using your credentials. It's not like, is the support engineer in your account trying to change something. You have total control about this. I have other examples, like troubleshooting networking issues. You can launch an instance, do ping, trace cert, and MTR, and collect this information back and see, okay, why this is slow, when is it slow. Typically, actions that takes time, requires a person to be in front of the computer to get this information. And yeah, so multiple use cases, and I'm happy that we will keep developing more documents in the future. I see that probably you have a couple of examples as well, Francesco, you want to share. with
Ab-
with us?
Absolutely. Thank you, Carlos. So, as Carlos was saying, there's a lot that customers can do in a self-service fashion. There's a list of automation documents that Padma listed in the chat, and you can see those in the console as well. There's addressing a variety of different common tasks and resolution to common issues. One thing, though, that we particularly like is the AWS Support produced document. So, as we get to see a lot of customers coming with similar problems or requiring assistance on specific issue, we decided to start working a bit with them and make their life easier. For example, one thing that's quite common when troubleshooting Kubernetes on Elastic Container Service on AWS is requiring logs from our customers. Premium support and AWS has no access to customer data and the logs generated by the instances. So when we need to assist our customers in dealing with issues that are a bit more complicated or where there's no clear path forward and requires reviewing your logs, we'll ask our customers to give us those logs. This can be quite time consuming, especially if you have a big cluster with a lot of nodes. You'll have to get in those automatically. And if you do not have set up a distributed logging, it can be a bit of a difficult operation, just quite time consuming. With this, you can specify the cluster that you want logs from, give the appropriate permission, and this will recover and bundle the logs to share with either a support engineer or with your internal teams when you're reviewing things. So basically, removing a lot of the tedious and repetitive operations and making the resolution, bringing you closer to the resolution of the issues. So there's also the example of EC2Rescue. That's another tool that Premium Support built to assist and troubleshoot, diagnose common Linux and Windows issues. Normally, you will have to install this piece of software on your instance, run it, and get the diagnostic with the automation provided by SSM. You can simply specify an instance target, and given the appropriate permission, this will run automatically and get the data for you and try to give you the data for what is the issue or the diagnostic that's being run. It's not the only part of automation, but it's one of the things that definitely can make the life for your operation engineers easier, and that can also make your life easier when troubleshooting and diagnosing issues. So I think that it's time to start talking a bit about Fleet Manager. It is something that, as we mentioned before, is quite central in bringing together a lot of the different aspects of system managers. Before we move into that, though, I would like to ask Padma, is there any question from the audience?
I don't see any questions from the audience right now. Everyone, please feel free to ask your questions. We have experts here who can address any systems manager use cases you have. And also feel free to share your use case and how you are using systems manager. We look forward to hearing from you. Francesco, I have a couple of questions based on what we talked about. First, can you talk to me a little bit about the programming language support that's available to perform or write the automation document?
Absolutely. So the automation documents are not really defined by programming language, so you do not need to have any prior programming language knowledge. I'll have Carlos explain a bit more how it works, but basically you define the actions and tasks that needs to be taken by the automation using normal syntax like JSON or YAML files that define the input and output of those steps, and basically execute that without the need of any language. You can still use Lambda to expand on your automation, and depending on which function you will use, what you want to do, you can use different type of languages depending on the language that are currently supported by Lambda, but definitely you don't need any prior programming knowledge to get started with the automations. Carlos, anything else you would like to add here?
Yes, I would say that imagine there is kind of when you go to a restaurant and you have a menu of different dishes, right? So there are a number of actions. I think that probably there are like 10 or no, probably 15 different actions, and you just like these actions are defined as a YAML section, and then you put these YAMLs one after the other in your document. And then there are special sections or special actions that allow you to branch. So for example, let's say I want to do this, but I want to do this on Linux, or I want to do this on Windows. So you get the platform because you can call AWS API, describe your instance. Okay, it's Linux. So if it's this value, I will jump to this step. If it's this other value, I will jump to this other step. And with these different things, you can do a lot of like automate multiple things. But as you said, Francesco, one of the most powerful elements is that you can just execute code. So if you want to be creative, you can sharp your Python skills or .NET skills if you're like a more Microsoft like me, and just do whatever you want, process data, and then continue your workflow as you need. If you want to interact, for example, with an internal service, let's say that you solve something and you want to close the ticket automatically in your ticketing system, you can call the API if you have it published in internet or through the VPC, for example.
Got it. Thank you. Back to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Let's go to Fleet Manager. And again, want to give a brief overview before I leave it to Carlos to give us a bit more details, and then we'll finally get to the demo. But this is a feature that was launched recently, as we mentioned, last December. And it is meant to be a central console-based interface for all your needs in managing your fleet. You just need to complete prerequisites for the instances to show up in the Fleet Manager overview. This normally require you to have the SSM agent installed and configured and the right IAM permissions. But once you do that, it allows you to monitor your fleet and view performance counters, log data, access the file system, and basically manage your Windows, Linux, and macOS instances from the console without having to know anything about credentials or passwords. And obviously, you can use IAM permissions to scope who are the users that can access this information. This information is normally then used to react to either issues or misbehaviors, or basically guide your troubleshooting, but also ensure that your fleet is in a healthy state and in the state that it is desired. There's nothing really new about Fleet Manager as a tool. All the tools and all the actions you can take are taken from the different components of SSM. But what is really unique is the fact that you now have a single place where to manage everything. Perfect. So with that said, I would like to ask you, Carlos, can you give us a bit of information on what you can do from the Fleet Manager interface, and what are the advantages in using it?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Francesco. And yeah, so Marco will give you a demo, but I just wanted to mention a couple of things. Because as you said, you have this central place where you go and you can see your different instances. And it's something that I love because I am a Microsoft engineer, right? So I like the point and click instead of typing your multiple commands in the Linux shell. So you can just, I want to see what my instance has installed. You just click on the instance. You want to read a file. You don't have to use Vim or Nano or any other like editor to tail logs. You just go there, open the file, tail, and you can troubleshoot issues. Or you can see performance or like detailed performance of your instances, see the patch status. So if I go there, I can quickly see, okay, this instance, I don't know, there are 100 different available patches for my Windows Server 2012 instance. And from those, I have 90 installed, and there are, I don't know, 3 that I'm missing. And are those 3 critical, or it's fine? It's just a feature of .NET or something else that I don't need at the moment. It's the same for Linux. So you can see all the patches, and you can determine if do I have the latest updates on that particular one. So you can react, right? You don't want to keep your instances without proper patches, because you know what can happen. There are, I don't want to bring nightmares to anyone, but that is our responsibility, right, as admins and DevOps. And the other thing is that you can like for example, let's say that you need to grant access to someone else to do something ad hoc in one of the instances. You can go to user management, enable a user, create a user. Okay, you get access, and all this is locked because SSM is integrated with the services that you normally know that allows you to track all these changes, like CloudTrail. So if I want to go back and say, okay, who did this? You can audit logs. You can there is a trace on this action. So it's trying to put some control, right? It's what we're looking, what enterprise customers looking, what customers in general are looking is how can I do this in a better way, in a more controlled way. So that's it. I will pass to Marcos, so it will show you a bit more. And if there are any questions, then we can jump in again.
Thank you, Carlos. So let's have a look to what is actually Fleet Manager looks like in the console. So from the AWS System Manager main console, we can move to the Fleet Manager section, and we can have a look to the. So in this example, I have two instances, one Linux and one Windows, and we can start to have a look to the what the account management functionality shows us. So from here you can configure various aspects of System Manager. For example, you can enable your inventory configuration, or you can decide to have an auto update for the SSM agent installed in your instance. Moving forward to what is the menu for a single instance, this is the list of the action that you have. We're going to see in a moment all the admin tools that Fleet Manager gives you. But I would like to say here we have, for example, the start connection command, start session action that is from the session manager we discussed before. So let's see the details of a specific instance. So this is a Windows instance. So we have, let's start from what we have in the panel above. We have an instance overview where we have all the information about this instance, like the platform for type, the instance type, the OS, the SSM agent version, and the availability zone. And in the panel above, we have a different section in which we can configure, starting with tags. We can configure, edit, remove, and add tags associated to this instance. Then moving to the inventory section, we have the inventory of the collected from the inside this instance by the inventory feature. And we can see and we can search in this information. For example, we can have a look to this information are categorized in section, and we can see AWS component, for example. In this example, in this machine that is a Windows machine, we can see the PowerShell AWS tool for Windows. We can see the SSM agent, and we can see the PV drivers. We can see the version of it. We can see when it was installed. Moving forward in association, we have association that are binded to each instance. And in this example, we can see update for SSM agent, for example, the document that keep this instance updated with SSM version. And also we can see the association for the software inventory. So that is the one in charge for collecting the inventory from the instance itself. We can see the when it was last executed, and we can see if it was executed correctly or not in the association status. Moving to the patch section, we have a summary of the patch installed in this system. So starting from the how many patches are correctly installed, how many updates are needed to be installed in this instance, and how many updates had an error. In the panel above, we have a list of patches, and for each patches we have the classification, we have the description, and we have the severity. And we also have the state if the patch is installed or not.
Marco, one question. Regarding the severity, where that information comes from? Do the customers have to define the severity for the patches, or are we providing that information? How does that work?
Thank you for the question, Francesco. Yeah, the severity comes from the recommendation that the vendors of the OS publish. So this inventory of patches is something. It's part of System Manager, but the information about the severity comes directly, in this case, from Microsoft, and for other OS, they comes from directly from the vendor. For example, Red Hat.
But thank you very much, Marco.
Moving forward to the for the compliance, again, as we spoke about severity, you can decide that your instances are compliant about patches if all the important and all the important patches are installed. So you can define a set of rules that is your patch baseline that tells us if all the patches for that OS of that severity are installed correctly. And you see also not only the rules of the association, but also for every single patch we have, you can see if the fact that patch is installed or not, if that is compliant or not. So now we're gonna see one by one what are the admin tools that Fleet Manager brings to you in the console. So first of all, the file system. The file system is very useful because, as we said, you can navigate live in your file system from the console, and you can also open a file. We are opening an example file here, and you can read that file, and you can also go in tail with that file. So without having any knowledge about the command line, for example, for a Linux machine, or without even having the username and password for SSH in that instance, you can have a look inside a log file, and you can tail on that, and your engineers and your DevOps can investigate in an issue. Moving forward, coming back to the instance again, we can see the Windows registry section. From Windows, the registry structure is very important. And in this tool, we not only can have a look inside the registry and see what are the current key and values, but we can also edit these values directly. And in this example, we are going to open the blink rate for the cursor, just for an example. But as you can see here, you can change that value and apply a new value. In the same way, you can create new keys, or sorry, you can delete for registry keys that you want, or you can create new keys specifically, or you can create new registry entry, and you have all the type already defined that you can choose from a menu, and you can create your entry. Coming back again, we also, another important part of Windows OS is the event log section. From here, you can navigate in both application and service logs and Windows logs. We're gonna see, for example, the system one for this instance, and we can search with the above filtering, and we can see into specific the content of one event. So again, this for troubleshooting scenarios, it can very handy and very useful, and allow you to do not have to connect to that instance in RDP to have a look at that.
Marco, one question. This looks very powerful. So that means that I can access any instance, or as a customer, somehow can I control what has access to which instances. For example, I want someone in a particular role or department only accessing some instances with a particular tag. Can I do that?
Yeah, so the fleet manager itself, it comes with the configuration in permission inside IAM. So you can define and with all the power of IAM, what actually your user in the AWS console can do. So you can have condition on IAM for tags and allow a read-only access or allow read and write for the functionality that allow also to change values, for example.
Right. Francesco, I don't know if Padma, there is any questions from the audience around these topics.
Yes, we do have a couple of questions. So first question is from Mr. Builder 10. Thank you for your question, Mr. Builder 10. The question is, can I customize existing systems automation playbooks, or can I create my own?
Yeah, excellent question. Absolutely, and actually, the most of the documents we provide in SSM, so are of course not like probably fit all the possible use cases. So they are open source. You can go to the content of any document, copy, and then paste on a new version. And actually, I will say that is what we want: is be creative, get the ones that makes more sense for you, combine them in a creative way so you can solve problems that are unique to your business or your to particular use case. But absolutely, yes, you can.
Perfect. Thank you for that. The next question here is from Ray DB222. Thank you again for your question, Ray. So the question is, can you talk about the differences between app config and code deploy? How are they different?
Okay, I'm going to speak about app config. Is kind of it's a full services, right, inside of SSM. So I will give a quick explanation about app config, and probably I don't know, Francesco, what do you think? But we can probably touch in more depth in this particular topic in a different session. But so app config allows you to send configuration to your applications. So let's say that you have multiple nodes that are, I don't know, can be a particular program that is running on a device or something that can execute an API using whatever platform it supports. So you can define this configuration in a central place that is the app config SSM, and then your agents ask if there is a change. So let's say that you want to update something in the configuration of your application, that you have thousands of different devices. So they are asking all the time, do I have something new for me? Do I have something new for me? They do that because they handle like a version. So I am version 1. There is a new version for me. And when there is a new version, they can pull this change and apply the change in the configuration. So it's more to reach multiple instances, multiple devices that can talk to SSM to pull this information. So I would say that code deploy is more like ad hoc when you are running your pipeline and you want to like bootstrap something to test and release the software. So I would say that it's different use cases for both solutions.
And you can use those together. So code deploy, you need to think about code deploy as a way of publishing new code to your application. These normally can also include configuration changes. So it can serve the purpose of what app config is doing. But if you're using it in this way, you're definitely missing out on a feature that is quickly configuration changes for your application. So you will have to redeploy everything unless you created your code base in a way where configuration changes are pushed and then picked up by a different package, for example. So definitely there's a lot of synergy between the two. Both of them are supported by code pipeline, and it's definitely a good way of having them work together by serving those two different purposes.
Got it. I hope that answers your question, Ray DB222. I have one more question. Thanks for the question, Armando underscore Pepe. So the question is Systems Manager enabled by default, or should it be enabled for every instance manually?
So we'll talk about this in a bit more detail, but definitely this is something that comes pre-built in our AMIs, so public AMIs that AWS offers. We'll cover this in a bit more in depth. You will still need to provide the proper permissions to those instances by use of roles, but once you have that, then you're basically good to go. There's a few other caveats, but those are better explained in the documentation, and we'll get back to this in a few minutes. Thanks for the question.
Perfect. So back to you all for the rest of the show.
Okay, so let's go further here, and we can see now about performance counter. I love this functionality because helps us to help our customer to investigate, for example, the memory issue. As you may know, we in CloudWatch we offer some metrics coming from the AWS perspective of your instances, but since the memory usage is something that comes from inside OS, we don't have access to that. So we don't provide a default metric for memory usage. So what this functionality here can do for you is to show the live what is the consumption of CPU utilization, disk input output, network traffic, and memory usage. So if you have this enabled, you can quickly open this panel from the AWS console and have a look to the memory usage of your instance. And from here, you may spot that there is an increase of usage in the memory, and for that reason, you can go further and investigate more why the memory usage is increased so much.
And this is real-time data, right, Marco?
Yeah, this is real-time data. As you see, the data are growing and mapping.
Oh, okay, perfect. And does he use CloudWatch as a backend?
No. These four metrics are taken directly from the instance live. So
Okay,
it does not. It's gonna match, of course, with what you see in CloudWatch, but it's taken live from the OS.
Thank you.
Let's move forward. We see the last functionality is for the user and groups. Another easy to use troubleshoot scenario is when you need to make a change in your user. For example, you want to temporarily make an administrator in that instance. You can have full control of the local user and the local groups of your instance from here. For example, you can create a new user. You can also set the password directly from here. And then you can make changes on existing user or even delete them. So we can see here the functionality for change the configuration of the user, in particular to add it to a group. We can see here the entire list of groups in this local instance, and you can flag which new group you want to configure for this user, and as well as we can do some action in and deleting a user if you want. The same functionality comes also for the group section. You can see it's fetching data. You can see the list of the groups that are locally to your instance, and you can create a new one. While you are creating, you can also define directly who has the group member. And then again, you can delete a group if you want, and from action again, you can modify a group, and you can change the membership of the group assigned to. Going forward, we can go back. This was the entire set of functionality for a Windows instance. We have an Amazon Linux instance here as well. The functionality is pretty the same. We just, of course, we don't have the access to event logs, and we don't have access to sorry, the other functionality.
The registry.
The registry. Pardon me. File system, performance counter, and user and groups works in the same way that we saw for the Windows instance. And that's all.
Thank you. And just to add on that, this is based on the fact that the Linux philosophy, everything is a file. So having access to the file system allows you to do all the basic troubleshooting tasks and administrative tasks that you will have on Linux. Perfect. Thank you very much, Marco.
Padma, do you? Oh, okay.
Please go ahead.
No. Padma, do we have any question?
There are no further questions on the chat window. Are there? But I can ask one more question. Can you talk about installing SSM agent on premise?
Absolutely, I can do that. So as we mentioned before, the SM agent, it is a software that comes bundled in AMIs that you have on AWS. If you want to have the same capabilities on premise, you'll have simply install the agent and give it the right level of permission. This usually comes either through temporary credentials or a secret an access key that you're going to give those systems to be able to authenticate and control and communicate with the SSM endpoints. So basically what you will have is similar to what you've done. You install the package, configure for permissions. These obviously cannot leverage the instance roles like you will do on AWS, since you don't have that capability in your own data center, but everything else will work similar to this. Just to add on to that, we have the agent is quite peculiar. He works in a polling mode and basically continuously asks System Manager if he has work to do or action to take, and obviously report the data that he needs to report. This means that you do not need to have inbound communication to your instances and resources, not even in your data center. And as long as your instances have outbound access to system managers, they will be able to communicate, and you will be able to manage those through the fleet manager, as we saw, or through the different tools that the system managers offer. So either public IP with an internet gateway, or a NAT gateway, or a VPC endpoint that's available as well if you don't want traffic to leave. And similarly, you could have something similar for your own premise and have rules to communicate with system manager. That's also one of the reasons why our customers are able to remove their bastion hosts, since with Session Manager, you will have access to your instances without the need of inbound access, making your environment even more secure. Perfect. So that's everything I wanted to talk about. I'll go back to you, Padma.
Thank you all. Thank you for walking us through the session today. So everyone, today we introduced to you the Amazon Systems Manager. We walked through a demo using the SSM Fleet Manager, and we showed how you can streamline your remote server management. If there are any questions that were not answered today, please post them on forums.aws.amazon.com and email us. Email us any feedback to kc-live@amazon.com. We want to hear from you. Tell us what other topics you would like to see on this show. Thank you for joining us today at AWS Knowledge Center Live. Happy cloud computing.
Happy cloud computing. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.